Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today on Face Off, my question to you was, what do you think is the weakest season of the Graham Williams era, which is of course seasons 15, 16, and 17 of classic Doctor Who with Tom Baker as the fourth Doctor. Now, for me, this is a tricky one. I like all of Tom Baker's seasons. I don't think he has a bad season. I tend to have affection for all of them. For me personally, I'd say the weakest is season 15. Because I like season 17. It has this very Douglas Adams nature to it, this very fun, exciting, campy at times, silly at times, but it's witty, it's got a great sense of humor, and it's a lot of fun. Even Horns of Nimon is a lot of fun. If you know what Horns of Nimon is going into it. Like the first time I saw Horns of Nimon, I did not think much of it. I thought less of it than I think of Power of Kroll. But on rewatches, I have grown to love it. Because once you embrace the camp and silliness of Horns of Nimon, it's so much fun. And the only person I think that comes close to getting the fourth Doctor as good as Tom Baker does is Douglas Adams. Tom Baker and Douglas Adams fit together like two pieces of a puzzle, and they are marvelous together. I like Destiny of the Daleks. Is it the best Dalek story? No. Is it better than Genesis? No. But it's a lot of fun. Tom is having a great time in it, he looks like. I mean, you can tell Tom and Lala really are, head over heels for each other in this season. They click really well, so Tom always seems like he's really in a good mood, really in top form in season 17. I mean, Tom's always good, but he's really in top form here. This is like the pinnacle of his witty Doctor, in my opinion. City of Death, of course, is a classic, my favorite Doctor Who episode of all time. I think Nightmare of Eden is good. I really like Creature from the Pit, very underrated. Has one of my favorite Fourth Doctor scenes in it. And Shada is fantastic, especially now that we have it completed. It's just very good writing with great location work and good animation. My least favorite is season 15, as I said. Season 15 really has one stone cold masterpiece in Horror of Fang Rot, which is phenomenal. Every Doctor Who fan needs to see Horror of Fang Rot, horror done right. And I love Leela. Leela's one of my favorite companions. Her and the Fourth Doctor are really good together. It also has the Sunmakers, which I really like a lot. Again, Bob Holmes being Bob Holmes. The Sunmakers is fantastic satire. And it has a lot of very humorous moments in it. I love the, excuse me. I love the fun it has poking fun at things. I enjoy that. But then you have, those are really the highlights of the season, are those two. Image of the Fendal is good, but it feels a little neutered in places. The Fendal's final form isn't very intimidating. Some of the shots of it work. A lot of the shots don't. The little creatures are, The story is good. The story to Image of the Fendal is really good. The guest actors are hit or miss. Some of them are really good. Some of them are, Like, the woman, Wanda is great in it. Who's, of course, playing Thea. The guy playing Fendelman is good in it. Thea's kind of perhaps love interest, maybe if things have progressed. He's okay. The guy playing David, I didn't really care for. I don't know, it just feels like, I know Bob Holmes is credited as the script editor, but it's pretty much Anthony Reed running the show. He's pretty much taken over with this story, and it just doesn't quite come together for me personally. And then we have The Invisible Enemy, which never quite works for me. It's good in places. It's a good introduction to K9. I like the guy who invented K9, but it's just very lackluster ho-hum for me. Especially for 70s Doctor Who. Miles beyond some of the stuff in modern Doctor Who, but for 70s Doctor Who, it's kind of on the low end. And then Underworld is underrated. I will admit that. I like Underworld. I think the story is good. I think the model work in episodes 1 and 4 is phenomenally good for Classic Who. It's really just the CSO and the cave scenes in episodes 2 and 3, especially, especially one of those episodes. One of those, the CSO is a little better, and then the other one is really bad. I forget which one's which. But the story is fine. But it's still, overall, the story's kind of, Then you have The Invasion of Time, which really isn't that great. It's easily Tom's weakest season finale, and you can just tell the budget ran out. The story might not be the best. It's cool to see the Sontarans back. It's a nice little twist change at the end of, I think it's episode 4. I really like the guy playing Barusa in this one. It's nice to see more of Time Lord lore. Leela's exit is terribly handled, and just the budget being gone really kills it. So that easily makes it the weakest for me. Whereas season 16, despite having Krolin, I think is really good. It has two bangers with Rybos Operation and Pirate Planet, which are two of the best Tom Baker stories. They're great. Stones of Blood is kind of a mixed bag for me, but I enjoy it. Androids of Tara. It's weird. My opinion of androids changes. Excuse me, I cannot stop yawning today. My opinion of Androids of Terra changes with each watch through. I enjoy it, and I love Romano's outfit, and that purple outfit is fantastic. But my opinion of it does bounce back and forth, but I still like it well enough. You guys know I don't care for Kroll. And I think the Armageddon factor is vastly underrated. Vastly underrated. So yeah, I definitely picked season 15 as my weakest. Let's see what the poll had to say. So in the poll, season 17 was voted the weakest with 39% voting for season 17. However, not far behind it was season 15 with 31%, season 16 getting 15%, and I'm not sure also getting 15%. So none of these had like a strong majority. Season 17 had the most votes, but only with 39%, so a little over a third. Nothing near 50%. Season 15 with 31%, and then I'm not sure in season 16 getting 15%. So season 16 seemingly faring the best here. Let's see what you guys had to say. Mark Postgate says, they're not really all that bad by modern standards. That's very true by modern standards. All three have their highlights: Horror, Fang Rock, Image of the Findal in 15, Stones of Blood, Androids in Terra, Armageddon Factor in 16, and City of Death in 17. They all have a better hit rate than most seasons of New Who. I'll say most of the past few seasons of New Who myself. Nick Hayako had to comment on that and say Armageddon Factor isn't a highlight. On the contrary. That's pretty funny. And then Shamrock had to chime in. Armageddon starts great, but Salam's faster than skateboarding down a hill while tinkling in the wrong direction. Modern Who, too, often hasn't felt rewatchable, but there are many who find them rewatchable while saying classic is too slow. And then Tedious Milkshake says, Armageddon Factor, are you off your rocker? I like Armageddon Factor myself, to be fair. I do. Stephen Crane, who is one of my top tier patrons, actually, says, The Key to Time. My favorite female companion in some very subpar stories. It's only Mary Tam that ever has me go back to this season. To be fair, Mary Tam, I think, is one of the most attractive women I've ever seen. Shamrock Particle says, 17 has some greats, but too many stories in it feel like they're slogging through without any care. And a couple even feel like they're attacking their own show with what feels like veiled contempt. I don't get that at all. In one case, both conditions apply, which is sad as I do like aspects of Destiny of the Daleks. See, I don't get that from Destiny at all. I really don't. Tedious Milkshake says there are no bad stories in 15 and 16. However, in 17, well, let's just say Nightmare of Eden convinced me to do hard drugs just because I wanted to oppose this monster that aged half of my family to death with how boring it was. He goes, whoops, I almost forgot season 16 has Power of Kroll. Therefore, it is perfect and can in no way be the worst season. I will go beg forgiveness from my Power of Kroll shrine that wasn't prominent in my mind briefly. I should be ashamed of myself. I'd have a Power of Kroll like Karn, something to burn. Colin Coney, who's another one of my top tier patrons, says, I know I'm in the minority here, but I've never been a fan of major story arcs through a season, meaning it's 16 for me. The problem I have with arcs is that too often you get good stories that have a tacked-on element or even a MacGuffin that has no real relationship to the story, Key to Time. I just find that it doesn't work. Oh, and Power of Kroll. Still waiting for a Power of Kroll face-off with Daleks, Doctor 3, and Kroll. You know that you want to do it just so you have to rewatch Kroll. I wouldn't rewatch Kroll to do it. Are you out of your mind? I wouldn't rewatch Kroll to do it. I feel like Leela as I like Leela as a character, so despite her terrible departure, I have time for 15, and 17 has a lot of campy fun, it really does. And even though it's not my personal favorite, City of Death eliminates it from any discussion of worst seasons that also contains Power of Kroll. Even though those are in different seasons, which I pointed out to him here. Joker jumps in to say, I actually like Power Patrol. Sure, the production design is pretty bad and the plot isn't breaking any new ground, but I don't know, there's just something about it I really like. That's how I am with Creature of the Pit, Nightmare of Eden. Maybe it's just that swamp environment gives it a nice feel. If the location was a quarry, I probably wouldn't like it anywhere near as much. In any case, it's definitely more fun than the Armageddon Factor. And Colin says, I guess each into their own. I still have Kroll over much of modern Doctor Who. I wouldn't say that at all. Some of modern Doctor Who, but not most of it. Because at least it is watchable, but it is among the least good stories in Classic Who. That's true. Simon Mincher, another patron, says, close call between it's a close call because, I can't read today, season 15 has 4 strong stories up to Sunmakers, but then tails off with a terrible Underworld and poor finale. Underworld is way better than people give it credit for. The model work in Underworld is phenomenally good for classic Doctor Who. Season 16, Key to Time, is underrated with Classics Pirate Planet and 5 other solid supporting stories. Season 17 is the standout for me, both in quality and fun, and would be even higher in all times rankings if Shada filming had been completed. DW Fan 91, who also runs a fantastic YouTube channel of his own, says, I'm surprised 17 is the least popular. I mean, I agree that it is the weakest, but I thought the fandom liked it quite well. I'm a little disappointed myself. I love season 17. Joker Mercila says, this is tough. 15 and 17 have fairly sharp highs and lows, while 16 is more consistent but lacks any obvious high points. Nothing on the level of Horror, Fang Rot, The Sunmakers, or City of Death. So while I generally enjoy watching it, it mainly feels just fine. 15, on the other hand, has some great high points, but also Underworld and a somewhat awkward transitional tone, which is very obvious in Image of the Fendal. Yes, it is, I agree. I'm quite forgiving of the Invisible Enemy, and the shoddy production values of the Invasion of Time give it a certain goofy charm. 17 has some fairly unremarkable stories, but I feel that the comedic tone gives them an extra spark. I do as well. Which makes even Creature from the Pit relatively enjoyable. That is very well put. I really, really like that comment. I feel the same way on a lot of that. Basil Funkerton, who I also know from the Doctor Who merchandise forum, says, honestly, the Williams era gets more stick than it deserves. Season 15 has some fantastic stories. 16 gave us the Key to Time, and 17 is just Douglas Adams having the time of his life. Are there some down and dodgy moments? Yes, of course. But even the Hinchcliffe era wasn't completely infallible and perfect. I'm biased because I'm a huge 4th Doctor fan and enjoy his entire era, so I decided to choose the not sure option. Also my favorite era. I love the 4th Doctor. Bobby Frackle says, 17, City of Death is a classic, but the rest are poor. This is a guy who swears by Delta and the Bannerman, for the record. 15 tails off badly towards the end, but starts promising. 16 is brilliant. So this is someone who's going to tell me that Destiny of the Daleks is poor, but rave about Delta and the Bannerman. Press X to doubt. I'm just picking at Bobby, though. Me and Bobby get on well enough. Matt says, has to be 17. Adams was most skilled as a script editor when he was actually writing the script in question. Otherwise, what I've seen as his influence tended to distract and diminish from the more serious serials in the season. However, I still find it more enjoyable than season 18, which, while full of fascinating ideas, struggle to communicate them in an interesting or entertaining way. Nikayako, depends on whether you count Shada to season 17 or not. I do, for the record. If you do, it's season 15. Otherwise, it's season 17. I do count Shada as season 17. It is on the box set, after all. Sadeko says, not an easy choice. Season 15 is the most hard-edged of the 3, but that means you get the most dour, joyless toward the end. 16 is the most rich, adventurous of the 3, but ironically ends on the most gloomy and miserable finale of them all, one that's a real chore to get through. Season 17 never gets as miserable or tedious as either, and it does boast a solid classic, but it also features the least adventurous season of the 3, and gets the most samey fast. Fair enough. Problem Being says, has to be 15, mainly because you can't vote for the seasons with the Pirate Planet in it or City of Death. Well said. Well said, Problem Being. Well said. Philip says, season 17, which unfortunately suffers from poor production values. Only City of Death escapes here. Technically shot it too, what was filmed of it. over-reliance on comedy, at least one script, Creature from the Pit, that should have been jumped at an early stage. I love Creature from the Pit myself. And the loss of a whole story. When it comes to Tom's 7 seasons, this is without a doubt the run of the litter. Henry Andrews says, barring City of Death, it would have to be season 17. None of his era are necessarily bad, but I'd say 17 is the weakest. Craig Tucker says, season 17, apart from City of Death, I don't think the season is good. Joseph Ryan says season 15 because it is my least favorite Tom Baker season of classic Doctor Who. And Enigma Genesis says, the Who what now? And that's where we have it, with the comments kind of being all over the place, but 17 getting mentioned a lot in them. And season 17 winning, I guess, the vote of being the weakest season with 39%. Season 15 with 31%, 16 with 15%, and 15 with saying they're not sure. So, I want to know what you think if you didn't get to vote in this poll. So comment down below and tell me which season of the Graham Williams era do you think is the weakest. Also, don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference, and it's much appreciated. YouTube memberships are also available. My P.O. box is down in the description if there's anything you'd like to send to look at and review, and links to my Amazon wish list are down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.